What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the BLS podcast, aka the biggest little sportscast. I'm your host, Kenny Moss. Today, we're going to be reacting to Game 2 of the NBA Finals, previewing what we think the series is going to look like when they head back to Dallas. I'm also going to talk about the Florida Panthers taking a 2-0 lead on the Stanley Cup and where I think that series is going to continue to go from here. And then maybe we might even get into a little bit of baseball as well. But that's what we got in store today. And without further ado, let's jump right into it, man. You know, game two, both game one and game two of this NBA Finals has kind of gone exactly as I expected it to go. The first game being a little bit of a very convincing win for Boston was kind of what I expected to happen in game one. And then I expected game two to be a little bit closer, but with Boston kind of having control the whole time still, once again, like as a Celtics fan watching this game, even though Dallas had it close at a couple points or even got off to a bit of a hot start early in the game, I never really felt nervous. Like I was watching this game pretty confident the whole time. It felt like Boston was in control the whole time despite a much closer score than the previous game. So these first two games going exactly as I expected has me feeling myself a little bit, has me feeling like I kind of have a bearing on how this series is going to go. It has me feeling very encouraged and very confident as a Celtics fan that they're going to get banner 18, which is really sick. I feel like a little kid on Christmas every time I sit down to watch these finals games. Just seeing your team in the finals and seeing your team in the finals and, you know, feeling confident that they're going to win is a feeling that I have never really felt before. I mean, I was like 7, 8 years old last time Celtics were in the finals, and won. The 2010 finals against the Lakers. I mean, they lost that, so obviously I wasn't super confident then. Same thing with the Warriors finals. I wasn't super confident then. They lost that final. So this is definitely a unique feeling. It's really cool. I'm just kind of trying to live in it and enjoy it for as long as I can. Even after the games end, for the 2 days in between each game, I'm watching a bunch of film, I'm watching a bunch of breakdowns on YouTube. I'm locked in on the finals right now, and it's been awesome. So, what did I see in game two that was different from game one? Well, on Boston's side of things, I didn't see really anything different. I mean, other than them not shooting as well as they did in game one, most everything was pretty much the same way. They didn't make very much adjustments. I mean, what they're willing to allow is still the above the break 3-pointers for the others. What they're still willing to allow is Kyrie and Luka one-on-one isolations, trying to, essentially saying like, see if you two alone can beat us. Which at this point, it's almost proven that probably can't be done. I mean, Kyrie and Luka would have to be damn near perfect, but who knows? I mean, Kyrie didn't play that well last game, and maybe if he does play well, maybe we're sitting here having a different conversation. Maybe Boston doesn't win, but just the way that they're guarding Kyrie, Drew, and Derek, I just like Kyrie is amazing, and he is certainly capable of going off. But those are quite possibly the two best defensive guards in the league, and when you got to deal with one or the other for the entire 48 minutes of a ball game, or basically damn near the entire 48 minutes of a ball game, like that's tough, man. It's going to be tough for anybody to get their shot off, even if you are the most skilled guard the league has ever seen. But yeah, I don't see much different. Like above the break threes, they're still allowing Luka and Kyrie to, for the most part, go one-on-one. If they get into the paint, there's obviously some collapse going on there. A lot of times I do see them showing help on Kyrie, almost seeming like they're trying to get Kyrie to pass the ball, and almost seeming like Luka, they're more okay with Luka isolation trying to score, and they want to get Kyrie to play make. That's what I've noticed. I've noticed they've taken away almost the entire baseline and the corners. Like, they don't want shots at the rim and they don't want corner threes. They just want above the break threes, or they want Luka and Kyrie fading in the mid range or taking a difficult contested three. That's pretty much what Boston has kind of settled on, and it's worked for them. And I didn't see much difference. As far as like matchups and everything, like not too much different in game two compared to game one. I mean, Tatum is still guarding the bigs, which again just puts Luka in a situation where if he wants to target Horford or Porzingis, who is usually guarding Derrick Jones Jr., he's got to bring Derrick Jones Jr. over to set the screen. And Derrick Jones Jr. just doesn't set. It's the same thing with Kyrie. I saw the same thing happen with Kyrie in this game too. But Derrick Jones Jr. is not good enough of a screen setter or good enough of a pick and roller or good enough of a pick and popper to effectively run that action with him in the way that Dallas has done all season long with their bigs. And if Dallas can't find a way to start getting either Tatum off the big or to just start running pick and roll with the bigs, despite it being Tatum on them, like forget targeting Horford and Porzingis and just run the pick and roll with your bigs. Like I don't know what Dallas is gonna do. One thing that I kind of had in mind in my head that they could do is start running some off ball screens with the bigs in hopes that you can get Tatum to switch. Because maybe if you can get Tatum to switch and maybe you can get somebody like Jalen or somebody like one of the guards or something on one of the bigs, maybe you feel a little bit more comfortable running the pick and roll with one of those guys in the action as opposed to Jason Tatum. But Jason Tatum, my dog Milo, I think wants to come in the room. But Jason Tatum on the big has pretty much worked to perfection to neutralize Dallas's pick and roll with the bigs and Dallas's lob threats with the bigs. And Dallas is gonna have to figure out something to change that because Gafford and Lively being almost non-existent on the offensive end of the floor this time does not bode well for them, bro. Like they have been such a crucial part of what Dallas has done up to this point in the playoffs that you got to find a way to get them involved on both ends of the floor. And they're involved on the boards, they're involved defensively, but even then they're not as involved as they have been all playoffs long because Boston's 5-out philosophy is forcing them, dragging them out of the paint. So I do notice there's times where Boston isn't going 5-out, they're going 4-1, but instead of having like Porzingis or Horford in the dunker spot, they have like Derek White or Drew Holiday in the dunker spot. So, maybe it could be worthwhile to put a big on one of those guys, but I feel like if Boston sees a big on one of those guys, they're just going to go back to 5-out and then you're in the same situation. So I don't know, man. It's really tough for Dallas. Like this is a piss poor matchup for Dallas. This is maybe the worst team that they could have run into at this stage. So, like I said, kind of like I said in the last game, breaking down game one, I really don't know what Dallas can do to adjust to really give themselves like a firm, like something tangible to hold on to and be like, yeah, this can win us a ball game. Like everything just seems very up in the air and very reliant on so many variables for them to be able to win the game. Like they don't have a foolproof strategy that they can rely on, and that's not anything that's bad about Dallas per se. Like I think Dallas is well equipped to handle and play against and compete against majority of teams in the league. It's more so just saying like, look, this Boston team is almost perfectly built. Like a lot of people underestimated the Celtics team because they just chalk it up as, oh, it's the same Celtics team that we've been seeing, but it's not, man. This is a completely different team. They don't even really play the same way. Yeah, man. This Boston team got severely underestimated by a lot of the media and a lot of social media. That was either picking the Mavs or just thinking that this series was for sure gonna go 7 and thinking that if it's a close game, there's no way Boston can pull it out. Like all these takes I was seeing, it was just like severely underestimating a team that record-wise and statistics-wise is proving to be like one of the best teams we've ever seen, right? And I'm not saying they're better than Jordan's Bulls. I'm not saying they're better than KD and Curry's Warriors or anything like that. I'm not saying they're better than those teams. I'm just saying statistically and record-wise, they stack up with a lot of the greatest teams of all time. Like, you can make the case at the end of the season just looking at statistics and looking at the fact that they are probably going to win a championship. They could be considered a top 10 team of all time in the vein of the 2014 San Antonio Spurs. Like, we consider the 2014 San Antonio Spurs one of the 10 best teams we've ever seen, and it's predicated on elite ball movement, great teamwork, and elite defense, right? And this Boston team is kind of the same way. Elite defense, phenomenal teamwork, great ball movement, and a starting lineup that is just almost anybody can kill you. So, yeah, man, I think give it, 5-10 years, people are going to look back on this Celtics team and be like, damn, look back on the statistics of this Celtics team and where they stack up with some of the greatest teams of all time. And I think they're going to see them on some of those lists and they're going to be like, damn, that team was really like that good. And it's like, yeah, man, they were that good. It's just I feel like people were either so busy hating or so busy being indifferent towards them all season long that they just didn't really watch them, and didn't really study them, and didn't really realize just how good they were. But I think given time, this team is going to look back on, very greatly. I think people are going to look back on this Celtics team as like I said, one of the best teams we've ever seen. Um, and people are gonna call me biased in the comments. I don't really care. Stats back what I'm saying right now. And their dominance all year long has backed what I'm saying right now. And so I really don't care. You guys can go crazy with that in the comments about me just being biased. But yeah, man, it's tough for Dallas right now. Do I think they can get one in Dallas? Yeah, like I'll stick to my pick of Celtics in five. I definitely am leaning more towards Celtics in four than five at this current moment in time because I'm well aware that Boston is undefeated on the road in these playoffs. I'm well aware that Boston has a phenomenal road record in the regular season as well. I'm well aware that Boston's road record is better than Dallas's home record in both regular season and playoffs. So I definitely am leaning more towards a Celtics sweep when I just look at the fact that I don't see any clear adjustments that Dallas could make to give them upper hand, and I don't see, and I see a bunch of evidence of this Boston team being a phenomenal road team. I mean, some Celtics fans would even say they almost trust this team on the road even more than they do at home. So I'm definitely leaning more towards a sweep, but I'll stick to my pick of Celtics in five for the simple reason that yeah, like Dallas is capable of getting one. Like I don't want to act like Dallas isn't, and it's not even acting like Dallas isn't a good team. It's just speaking the truth in that they are incredibly outmatched. And I'll say the same thing that I said to my friend the other day. Like if Dallas were to find a way to win this series, it would be one of the most impressive championships I've ever seen. Because, like I said, this is a piss poor matchup for them. They are completely outmatched, and it would just be extremely impressive if they found a way to pull this out. Um, could I see Dallas maybe because of Tatum's poor shooting nights? Could I see Dallas maybe going into Game 3 with a plan to guard him a little bit differently? Potentially, the defense that Tatum has been seeing in Games 1 and 2 of this series, where a lot of help defense being shown, a lot of collapsing once he gets into the paint, and they're not necessarily sending like strict or clear double or triple teams as soon as he catches it. It's more so a situation of we're gonna show help to keep you from driving into the paint, and if you want to take a one-on-one jumper, like we're okay with that. That's kind of been the way Dallas has played Boston, or played Tatum specifically, I should say, but I could see them taking a little bit more of a different approach with how much the others have really beat them in this series and with how poor Tatum is shot, and how nervous he has looked at times. I could see them taking the approach of, well, you know what, let's just let Tatum go. Like, they're kind of give them a similar philosophy to what we've been seeing with Luka. Just like they're trying to, they don't believe that Luka by himself can beat them, so they're just letting him go. Maybe Dallas takes a similar philosophy with Tatum in this Game 3 and just says, let's just see if Tatum by himself can beat us, and let's just stick to everybody else and make sure that we don't give up anything for the others. And it could work out, but I mean, let's remember that Tatum had two very poor shooting nights and still had 16 and 18 respectively, which is a lot of points for somebody who shot the ball terribly. And then let's also remember that like this is one of the best scorers in the league, and if he's seeing less bodies and being made less uncomfortable when he goes to the paint, if he gets in rhythm, he's very capable of giving you 30 to 40, any given night. So, or even 50 for that matter. But so could Dallas take that approach? Maybe, but I have a feeling that if they do take that approach and Tatum begins to torch them, that they probably would adjust mid game. But you never know, man. Like Dallas might be in desperate situation here, and you say, okay, collapsing on Tatum and showing help on Tatum hasn't helped us win these games. We're in a bit of a desperate spot. Let's just stand pat to our game plan of seeing if Tatum can beat us. Like I could see them taking that approach, and I honestly, to a certain extent, I hope that they take that approach because I think it would be pretty cool for Tatum to actually have like a really good scoring night here in these finals. Just because people are hating on him so much, even though he's playing winning basketball. He's don't get me wrong, he's shooting awful, like god awful from the field. And especially in game one, he had turnover issues severely. But, overall, he's playing winning basketball. He's playing well defensively. He's doing his job on the bigs. He's playing phenomenal on the boards. I mean, like out rebounding Dallas's big man. Like he's been phenomenal on the boards. He's been phenomenal playmaking, making the right pass damn near every single time, finished with 12 assists in the last game. So, Tatum is playing winning basketball, and he's doing exactly what you're supposed to do when your shot isn't falling. When you're having a rough shooting night, you find other ways to impact the game. You find other ways to impact winning. You find ways to not get in the way of the ultimate goal. And, Tatum has done exactly that. And I'm super proud of him as a Celtics fan. This team is Celtics basketball at its core, not heavily reliant on one person, and just really reliant on team play and ball movement and, spreading everything and making the right play and playing elite defense. I mean, the defense, especially down the clutch of that game 2, was phenomenal. Like Drew and Derek, they can just flip the switch at any point, and you see why people are calling them possibly the best defensive backcourt of all time. I don't really know. I don't want to say that with 100% certainty. I'd have to look at, what some of the other best defensive backcourts of all time were. I mean, somebody like Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas comes to mind. I never really watched them a bunch with my own two eyes. I'd have to go watch a little bit more, and maybe even just look at some advanced statistics. But yeah, man. I mean, Derek and Drew, like, if they're not the best defensive backcourt of all time, they are far and away the best defensive backcourt right now in the league. And they are super fun to watch down the stretch of games. When things get tight, they constantly make game-winning defensive plays. And, everybody wants to talk about the game-winning shots or the clutch shots, everything. Maybe it's just me being a Celtics fan, but I love the clutch defensive moments, like, even more than those moments. Like to see Drew disrupt I think it might have been Luka bringing the ball up the floor or somebody bringing the ball up the floor. It might have been Kyrie, but Luka, to see Drew disrupt them and force them into a pass into the front court, and for Derek to just pick it off like a free safety, that's the kind of shit I love, man, and that's the kind of shit that won us the game. And Derek's block, I'll talk about that real quick. A lot of ESPN announcers have been running rampant with this idea that the Mavericks got robbed because there was a push in the back by Jaylen Brown on that last block on P.J. Washington, and it didn't get called. I have a couple things to say about that. So the first thing I have to say about that is, okay, let's just say it was a foul. Let's say they do call it. Let's say P.J. steps up to the line and hits both free throws, right? Which there's also no guarantee he would do. But let's say he steps up to the line and hits both free throws. It wasn't a goaltend because he missed the shot off the rim anyway, right? So they wouldn't have given them the 2 points. Like the ball hit off the side of the rim. He wasn't gonna. It was gonna be 2 free throws is what I'm getting at, right? Let's say he makes both those free throws. It's still a 3-point game with 30 seconds left, and on the very next possession, Jaylen Brown still went and got himself a bucket. And so I like, even if that foul is called, there's no guarantee that Dallas wins this game. So I don't understand the whole, pushing this narrative that the refs won the game for Boston. Like, Boston was gonna have the lead even if that foul was called, and not just have the lead but have a 3-point lead. Like, the most Dallas could do if Boston went down and missed a shot was potentially tie it up with a 3. Like, it's not like they could have won the game or on the next possession or anything like that. So I don't understand that, first and foremost. Secondly, that's such a, like, petty call to make in that spot. Like, Jaylen doesn't shove him. Like, it's more so just Jaylen trying to keep himself from running into him. And when I watch the play in real time and when I watch it in slow motion, it just looks like if the refs were to call that, that's just a ticky-tacky petty call to make in a finals game where, especially in the fourth quarter, they were really letting them play. Like, there was a ton of things that could have been called on both ends of the floor in that fourth quarter. Like, Boston could have been called for a ton of fouls in that fourth quarter. Dallas could have been called for a ton of fouls in that fourth quarter. But they let it go. They were letting them play. And of all the stuff that didn't get called, for that one to be the one that people are, like, harping on is really strange to me, because it does not look like a drastic foul, especially in comparison to a lot of the other ones that weren't called. We'll have to see what the 2-minute report says, see if the 2-minute report says that Jaylen fouled him or not. I saw some Mavs fans pretty upset that, like, Derek's block was considered legal when he was on the hand, and PJ Washington's block on Derek earlier in the game wasn't legal when it was on the hand. Um, and I do agree. PJ Washington's block earlier in that game on Derek was actually legal in my opinion. Um, but they lost the challenge on that, and but I because hand is part of the ball, right? Like, so I think both blocks were legal. Um, but I also think that a missed call in the first quarter while you guys had the lead is not what lost you the game. Like, you still were not able to maintain the lead from that point. You still allowed Boston to gain control and pretty much have control the entire game, despite it being a relatively close game. Um, it's that call is not what lost you guys the game. But enough of that, man. I'm sticking to my prediction of Boston in 5, but I'm certainly rooting for Boston in 4. And if I'm being honest, I'm kind of feeling like that's more of a likelihood than Boston in 5. But just for the sake of sticking to my pick, I'll stick to Boston in 5. So that's gonna do it for finals talk. We were on that for a little bit. Let me see how long. About 20 minutes. Gave you guys about 20 minutes of finals talk. Let's talk about hockey. Let's talk about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. So Florida took both of games 1 and 2. And game 1 was not very competitive at all. Florida jumped out to I think it was like a 2-0 lead, like relatively early. Yeah, if we look at the box score, they scored a goal in every period, and Edmonton obviously, Bobrovsky had himself a shutout in game 1 of the finals, which is crazy. It's crazy against a team like the Edmonton Oilers who, shoot a ton of fucking shots per game on average, and are just known as like one of the best offensive, if not the best offensive teams in the league. Like, to shut them out in game 1 of the NBA Finals on your home floor, Bobrovsky probably that's a performance to be proud of, man. That's a real performance to be proud of. But Florida, jumping out to their 1-0 lead in the first period, extending it to 2-0 in the second period, and then the icing on the cake with the third goal in the third period, a 3-0 win for Florida in game 1. It wasn't even really close. And so, I'm feeling really good about my pick of Florida in 6 because of that after that game. But I'm not feeling so good about my pick of Florida in 6 after game 2. And it's not because I don't think Florida is going to win. Obviously, I still think Florida is going to win. I just don't think, I think it might be less than 6. That's the only thing I'm worried about. But yeah, this game was actually really, really impressive to me. And again, this is why I picked Florida over Edmonton. Like, despite Edmonton's such high power offense, I picked Florida because, one, Bobrovsky is just elite at what he does. But two, I was just extremely impressed with Florida's ability to, fight back with their backs against the wall. And that's not necessarily to say that their backs were like super against the wall at any point in this game. Because they did go into the third period with a tie game. But I mean, Edmonton jumps out to an early lead 1-0, and they maintain that lead pretty deep into the second period. I mean, Florida didn't tie it back up until we got pretty deep into the second period of that game. But once Florida did tie it up, I was like, okay, I feel like Florida is going to win this game. But for them to win by 3, for them to have 3 goals in that third period, and I understand one of them came from an empty net goal, but still, man, for them to get 3 goals in that third period after being down 1-0 to start the game it just showed me exactly why I believe this Florida Panthers team is going to be crowned champions by the end of this season anyway. They have the ability to, when their backs are against the wall, just buckle down and do what they need to do on both ends to make it happen. And, something I find interesting is despite Edmonton having their lead early on and despite Edmonton having their lead for majority of the game, they got way outshot in this game. And this is Edmonton. This is a team that averages 31, 32 shots on goal per game. They had 19 shots on goal in this game. When you are that high-powered of an offense, you have to find a way to get more shots on goal than that. The whole thing here is that Florida is the better defensive team and Edmonton is supposed to be the better offensive team. And Florida is dogging them on both ends right now. Like Florida is dogging them offensively too. So and even the face offs and everything in this game, like it felt like, especially down the stretch, like Edmonton could just not get a face off when they really needed it. Um, yeah, man, and to give up the power play goal to Florida, the fact that Florida has 7 goals in these first 2 games, and that was the first power play one, is pretty impressive. It means that they have 6 straight up goals throughout these first 2 games. Um, yeah, man, I it, Florida could get this done faster than 6. Now we are going back to Edmonton. That could change things. And I don't want to count Edmonton out because, like I said, they do have such a high-powered offense, and they do have elite names like McDavid, Draisaitl. Like they got a squad, so I don't want to count Edmonton out at all. But it is looking like Florida. It's looking like Florida is gonna get it done for sure. So I feel pretty good about my pick of Florida Panthers to win. We'll see if it goes 6. See if Edmonton can maybe get a game or two back on their home floor. But I'm feeling real good about my pick of the Florida Panthers being Stanley Cup champions. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. It's been a pretty cool first season watching hockey for me, and I'm excited to just keep, like I said, like becoming more experienced of a hockey fan, and just delving deeper into the sport, as these seasons go on. So, shout out to the Florida Panthers. Something that is crazy is that um, to Chuck and Tatum, I think they went to high school together. I think they even like were on they had a class project that they did together. There's like a viral video that goes around of the two of them. For them to be in the same high school class together and now in the same year at the same time be up 2-0 in their respective final series and their respective championship series is like really weird, bro. Like the odds of that happening, I feel like, are crazy. Um, but yeah, shout out to Chuck. Shout out to Tatum. I think they're both gonna end up being champions by the end of I guess this week, you could say, or I guess the next couple weeks. Um, but yeah, shout out to them. So that's gonna do it for hockey. We are at about 27 minutes. Not gonna be a super long episode today, which I am totally cool with. I don't want to be editing for hella long today, if I'm being honest. So let's just get into a little bit of baseball. Kind of talk about, what's been going on in the MLB. So, standing wise, things are not too much different from what we saw last time. The Yankees are still top dogs in the American League, and I have a feeling that could remain for the rest of the season. I mean, Baltimore is a little bit on their tails. They're only 2.5 games back, so Baltimore is certainly capable of catching up, and Baltimore has a great team. But what I saw from the Yanks, especially recently, has really impressed me. I mean, let's look at the Yankees last few games. So, or not the Yankees last few games, but let's look at the Yankees last 2 series. So they had starting on at the end of May, the Yankees had a series with the San Francisco Giants in which they swept them. And the Giants are no slouch of a team, but they sweep them. They get the job done. Then they play the Twins. Again, no slouch of a team. Sweep them pretty convincingly, winning by multiple runs in every game, same way they did with the Giants. They had a little bit of a bump here running into the Dodgers. Okay, so Dodgers take a 2-1 extra innings victory in game 1 of that series, and then Dodgers win convincingly in game 2 of that series. But what impressed me about the Yanks in that series was game 3, they came out and made sure that they didn't get swept. And if you guys remember my last video talking about MLB, I believed that the Dodgers are like not my personal, but like my favorites. If I was a sports book and I was making odds for who I think is going to win the World Series, the Dodgers have the best odds, in my opinion. And so for the Yankees to come out against who I see as the World Series favorites, and despite getting, dogged in the previous game, to come out and answer back and ensure that you don't get swept in the series, and get yourself a convincing win in that final game of the series was impressive to me, man. And then they play the Kansas City Royals, who, as we know, have been really good all year, and Kansas City was really threatening to get back in that game late in that game, and Yankees handled business and closed it out. So I've just been really impressed with the Yankees this season. And I'm a Red Sox fan, so I don't like saying it, but I'm gonna give you guys my honest evaluation. And the Yankees are kind of like they're making because they still lost to the Dodgers in that series. I still have the Dodgers as my favorites to win the World Series, but the Yankees are a second, and they are a close second. Like if Dodgers and Yankees were to meet in the World Series, I've seen enough from this Yankees team to feel like confident that that would be a really competitive series, and there is a good chance that the Yankees come out on top. So Yankees fans, you guys have a lot to be excited about. Red Sox fans, we have a lot to be just meh about. Like Red Sox have been very meh this year, and with the Yankees being great on top of it, it's just not fun. But if you're a sports bettor and the Yankees are probably making you a good amount of money this year. I mean, they are for me. Like they are a team to bet on this year. The Yankees have been coming through big time. We could talk about the Orioles for a little bit, too. How the Orioles are on their tail, and how I think the Orioles um, could potentially jump them. I had the Orioles in my top 5 power rankings of the last video where we talked about MLB as well. Um, just what I've seen from the Yankees has me impressed with them and has me thinking that they will win the division. But at the same time, this is the Yankees we're talking about. They do have a knack for kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And the Orioles have consistently been great over the past few seasons, and are once again great this year. So could Baltimore potentially, make a run for the AL East division crown? Absolutely, bro. I mean, like I said, they're only 2.5 games back. If you look at the differential, the run differential, Yankees are plus 113, which is absurd, and the Orioles are plus 104. So, Orioles have a absolutely incredible run differential as well. Um, certainly, certainly capable of taking that division crown, and I'm excited to, watch and see what happens with that AL East division race between those two teams. Baltimore has a series against the Braves starting up today after they just swept a 4-game series versus the Tampa Bay Rays. So they're going to Atlanta, or no, Atlanta is coming to them for a 3-game series. And we'll see how that goes. Braves are a great team, but then after that, Baltimore follows it up with a series against the Phillies, and then a series against the Yanks, Astros, Guardians. So Baltimore's got a tough schedule ahead of them for these next few series. On the Yanks side of things, they've got the Royals that they are currently in a series with. Then they got to play the Red Sox, and they got to play the Orioles, Braves, Mets, Blue Jays. So definitely a little bit of an easier schedule for the Yankees here. If I was going to take a bet, like if I was going to predict, I think the Yankees are going to widen that 2.5 run gap that they have on their division lead over these next few series. Just Baltimore's competition is a lot tougher. But who knows if Baltimore can surprise in this series against Atlanta, and if they can surprise in the series after that against the Phillies as well, then they go into a series with the Yankees almost neck and neck. And if they can, they could potentially take the crown at that point. So that is a series to watch coming up. But then even after that series, even though Astros have been disappointing this year, still not a slouch of a team. You don't like facing them. And then the Guardians, we know how good they have been. So, it's a bit of a tougher schedule for Baltimore. So I almost expect the Yankees to separate themselves a little bit. But I'm looking forward and hoping that we have, a little bit of a neck and neck standings at the top of that AL East when that 3-game series between Baltimore and New York comes around, because that is going to be an awesome series to watch if that is the case. But yeah, we don't really have any tight battles anywhere else in the league as far as division crowns go. The next closest one would be Kansas City, 4.5 games behind Cleveland, and they're certainly catching up, able to catch up there. But Cleveland, like I said, I love Cleveland, man. I think they play like a brand of baseball that is like, it's. I'm not gonna say it's perfect, because obviously there's no such thing as perfect baseball, but I think they play like a damn near perfect brand of baseball. Like I'm a big fan of the Guardians. But yeah, outside of Baltimore and New York, we don't really have a big battle for a division crown anywhere else in the league. If we look at the wild card standings, the 3 wild card teams in the American League at this moment in time are Baltimore, who seem pretty. It seems almost certain that Baltimore, if they don't win the division, are going to be a wild card team with how much of a lead they have there. And then it's Kansas City with a plus 3.5 game lead, and then it's Minnesota Twins in that third wild card spot. Now I see my Red Sox only a couple games back of the wild card, which I'm being honest kind of surprises me. They are 500. They've pretty much been there all season long. It's like they'll get to 500, lose, get to 500, lose, get to 500, lose. So I don't know how confident I am in them being able to make the playoffs. Because they don't have a huge lead on a team like the Tigers, and the Tigers have given us a rough time when we've played them head to head. But the Tigers are only a half game back. We lose a game, they win a game, they're ahead of us, right? Blue Jays can definitely jump up there, although I've been quite disappointed in what I've seen from the Blue Jays this year. I don't think they've been very good at all. And same thing with the Texas Rangers. I don't think they've been very good at all, but still, they are only 1.5 games back. So there's some teams that are right there to jump in front of us. And even disregarding those teams, they're still technically on the outside looking in, still 2 games back behind Minnesota. And do I think Boston can catch up and pass Minnesota? Is it it's possible? But I'm just not. I'm not gonna get my hopes up as a Red Sox fan. But I will say, this season has been more fun as a Red Sox fan than I had anticipated. They have been better than I thought they were gonna be. I didn't think they were gonna be 500. I thought they were gonna be stinky as hell. But that's what we're looking at for the American League wild card. We can take a look at real quick before we move on. What I'm seeing is that Minnesota Twins, who are in the third wild card spot at this moment in time, have a -1 run differential. But the Red Sox, who are 2 games back of them and just outside the wild card, have a +30 run differential. So maybe I'm wrong, man. Maybe Boston could make a push and get that last wild card spot. We'll see, man. We'll see. Looking at the National League in the wild card, we've got the Atlanta Braves in the top spot with a 4-game lead. We've got the San Diego Padres in the second spot at 500 with a .5 game lead. And then we've got the San Francisco Giants sitting there in that third wild card spot. And then a couple of teams trailing the Giants by either 2 games or less for that final wild card spot. It's a lot. It's gonna be a dogfight for the last wild card spot for all the wild card spots in the National League. But just trailing behind the Giants, all these teams trailing behind the Giants by less than 2 games: Cincinnati Reds, Chicago Cubs, St. Louis Cardinals, Pittsburgh Pirates, Arizona Diamondbacks, Washington Nationals. So the National League is going to be a dogfight when it comes to the wild card spot, and who do I think is going to make it now? The Padres have been a little bit impressive this year. I don't know how much faith I have in them to carry it throughout the rest of the season, and with them only having a half a game lead on the wild card spot, they're literally only 1 game ahead of the Reds, Cubs, and Cardinals. And if you were going to ask me, I personally have more faith in the Reds, Cubs, and Cardinals than I do in the Padres. So I think the Padres are probably going to fall out of their wild card spot. I could be wrong, but that's just kind of where I stand right now. And the Giants, I even have more faith in the Giants than the Padres as well. So, but then Giants, Reds, Cubs, Cardinals, it gets really tough. All these teams are so evenly matched. I mean, we can look at run differential, and the only one of these teams battling for the final wild card spot that has a positive run differential is the Cincinnati Reds with +15. The New York Giants have a -27 run differential. Cubs -14, Cardinals -40, Pittsburgh Pirates -23, Diamondbacks -13, and Nationals -20. So run differential wise, these teams are not very good that are battling for that final spot outside of the Reds and the Padres, who have +24. So it's going to be a dogfight, man. I mean, I can look at some of the series coming up here for the Padres. They do have to face the A's, Mets, and then it gets tough with the Phillies, Brewers, Nats, and Red Sox. So a couple of not easy series, but a couple of series that they should be able to handle over these next couple weeks. But then it gets tough with the Phillies and Brewers especially, and then you got to face a team that's fighting for a wild card spot in both the Nats and the Red Sox after that. We look at the Giants and the series they got coming up. They are currently in one with the Astros. And then they got to play the Angels, the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Cubs again, and then the Dodgers. So Giants, I could see them winning this series against the Astros. They won Game 1 last night in a 1-run game. They got 2 more left in that series. I can see them winning the series against the Angels. But the Cubs, I can't confidently say I see the Giants winning. I can't confidently say I see them beating the Cardinals. And then when they have to play the Cubs, I can't confidently say I see them beating them. And then they got to play the Dodgers after that. So, I think Giants and Padres, we might end up seeing them drop out of these wild card spots. Um, Cincinnati Reds, let's look at their schedule. They've got a series against the Guardians coming up, a little 2-game series. That's going to be a real tough one. They got a 3-game series against the Brewers coming up. They got a 3-game series against the Pirates, who is battling with them for a wild card spot. They got a Red Sox team, which is also battling for a wild card spot. Then the Pirates again. Then the Cardinals, who are also battling for a wild card spot. It is going to be tight over these next few weeks, man, over this next month or so. Looking at the Cubs, we know they got those series against the Giants. They've also got a series against Cardinals, against the Rays. They got one against the Mets, one against the Brewers. It's really tough, bro. A lot of these teams that are battling for those spots are going to be playing each other. So it's tough, man. Like, what lineups do I feel most confident in? Looking at those teams battling for the NL wildcard spot, I think I would say I feel most confident in. Hold on, let me pull it back up real quick. As far as just batting lineups go, I feel really pretty confident in St. Louis's lineup. Relatively confident in Chicago and Cincinnati. And if Arizona can, somebody like Corbin Carroll can find a way to get it together, I feel pretty good about their lineup as well. But pitching, I feel pretty good about Chicago Cubs starters. I feel really good about Pittsburgh's pitching. I feel pretty okay about Arizona's pitching. I mean, Arizona's pitching was great last year, but has not been as great this year. It's tough, man. Though that NL wild card race is tough. I don't even think I can make a prediction right now. Who would I be rooting for? I mean, I really like this Reds team. I love watching this Reds team. But that is really the only team of these teams that I have any sort of personal bias for, as far as like I like watching them play. All these other teams, man, I really have no clue what is going to happen. I do think that one of these teams that's on the outside looking in is going to take either one or both of those spots away from the Padres and Giants. But I don't know who it's going to be. It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. Really, really fun next few weeks of baseball here, neck and neck in the standings. Teams are going to be moving around. People are going to be at risk of losing their spots in the standings, and it's going to be sick. So that is what I got for you guys on BLS today. We talked NBA Finals games 1 and 2 and what we foresee in that series from here on out. We talked Stanley Cup. We talked a little bit of baseball and some series coming up that could be interesting for the wild card race. And that's pretty much all I got for you guys. If you guys watched this video, thank you for watching. If you got this far into the video, I'll give you guys some plugs. So go check out the singles that I put out for my upcoming mixtape Legacy, which is supposed to drop when the Celtics win the championship. Set to drop as of right now on June 14th, which is Game 4, which would mean the Celtics pulled off a sweep if it comes out that day. So go check out the singles for that. Be on the lookout for that when it comes out. Check out my other projects as well. If you like hearing me talk and want to hear me talk about music, there's the K Reviews podcast on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts as well. So please go check out that. And other than that, that's going to do it for me, guys. Go Celtics. I really hope they win the championship, man. I've just been super ecstatic watching this team. All playoffs long, but really, really especially in this finals round. It has been really, really fun to watch this team. That being said, I'm getting out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Please go check out my music. Go check out K Reviews podcast, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.